Hello, my name is Dusan Augustin. I'm representing a team of researchers for the project called Transborder Carpooling against transport exclusion in Gmina Lesko and Okres Snina. I'm really thankful that you came to participate in our webinar. From this webinar, you will learn about the idea, like about the phenomena of transport exclusion in remote areas and its consequences for the society. As well, you will receive information about the different approaches towards the problem of transport exclusion from the public transport perspective. And as well, we will tell you a bit about the solution for the problem, which is carpooling based. This webinar, I think, will be interesting for lawmakers, people who are responsible for creating regulations for the public transport, as well local government representatives from the governments, local governments who are dealing with transport-related social exclusion, as well as scholars who are interested in public transport and new technologies, new systematic solutions for the transport exclusion problems, and as well inhabitants of the regions, especially regions of Lesko and regions of Snina, who are interested in improving their life quality and improving the local transport system and improving their satisfaction. And as well, the members of many NGOs and activists who are every day fighting for better public transport and better public services for the regions. I would like to introduce you to our to the actors who are helping us with creating of this research and in this this webinar. This is Visegrad Fund, who is organizing the whole project of including the research and showing the outcomes for all the partner countries, as well. Jagiellonian University in Kraków, especially Faculty of Management and Social Communication, Gmina Lesko, Okres Snina, and Podkarpackie Stowarzyszenie Miłośników Komunikacji, who were really helpful with making this research going on. So let's start. This webinar and this project is fully financed and funded by Visegrad Fund. I would like to tell you in around 30-40 minutes about what is problem of transport exclusion and social exclusion in remote areas. So I will briefly introduce you to the problematic of remote areas, especially mountainous areas and areas far from the main communication route, and problems which are related to the geography, to demography, to economy of those regions. Then we'll speak about transborder exclusion as a phenomena and its social implications, which is basically social exclusion. Then we will say a bit how public transport can respond for those problems or dilemmas, how the market is reacting for those dilemmas. And in the end, I would like to present you the outcomes of our research, the positive outcomes of our research, which is the carpooling in within the public transport system. Okay, so from the beginning, I would like to present you the regions of Lesko and Snina. Lesko is a small town, around 6,000 inhabitants in southeastern Poland, close to Ukrainian and Slovak border. This is a local trade and administrative center of the region, pretty much touristic region. Similar function is the city of Snina. Is a bit bigger because it's almost 20,000 inhabitants, and it is located in eastern part of Slovakia, next to the border with Ukraine and in Poland. And Snina is as well a local industrial center as well, part of administrative and trade trade center. Both of the regions are regions where there was some significant industry before, but it was shut down, and those cities are taking role of the local centers, as the other towns, the other centers are a bit far, and their regions are kind of last stop before the borders because they are in the kind of edge of the countries, and they are surrounded by beautiful sceneries, as you can see, but as well a lot of villages and rural areas. Unfortunately, as they are mountainous areas, the agriculture is not the most profitable way of making business there, but the significant amount of society is employed in agriculture as well. Okay, now I would like to tell you about the structure of the villages. So how the villages in those regions were created and why they look as they look like. So in all of these three pictures, you can see that there is one dominating route, one way around which the settlements are built. This is because in both regions, the settlements were located mainly in the valleys in between two mountains. There was probably some river, some creek, which was making the valley, and in this valley there were possibility to have better soil for agriculture, and those houses were built along the way. So on the left side we can see the type called Waldhaufendorf from German. In Polish it's łańcuchówka, in Slovak is Lesna Lanowa Wes. So we have the houses from both sides of the main road, and we have some streets on the left and right from this location, just to allow better access to some other villages or some fields on the sides. The other type is Zielendorf from German. In Polish is Rzędówka, in Slovak Riadkowa Wes. This type is mainly common when those villages are directly next to the river. So the river is making the valley, and possibly there is only way to build a house next to the river on one side, because on the other side there may be field, there may be a forest, there may be something which is blocking the location, and these villages are pretty sparsely populated because it's impossible to build the houses from the both of the sides. And the last one, so-called linear settlement, in Polish ulicówka, in Slovak ulicoka, this is the settlement where we have a bit of more of the flat land, which is allowing to distribute houses not only next to the river but as well on the sides. And this is typical for some bigger villages in those regions, like for example Choczew, or in Slovakia, Choczew in Gmina Lesko, and in Slovakia we have, for example, Stakcin. Okay, now you can see those cities and villages on a map. On the left you can see Gmina Lesko. On the right, Okres Snina. There are just parts of those villages, and I would like to present you how this structure of these settlements was created. So we can see on the left side in Gmina Lesko, we can see the valley of the river San. On both sides of the river San there are huge hills with the forests, and it is pretty not so much space for agriculture, for fields, but they are on the both sides of the river as well. And we can see how it will be to create a public transport connection from southeastern, from Gmina Lesko. There is a significant touristic spot called Polańczyk, when this route from Polanczyk is going to Lesko. So we can see that it's really easy to make this route in the valley of the river. So the connection is going through Polanczyk, Średnia Wieś, Bachlawa, Choczew, the main hub, because there may be some other routes coming to, and then Łączki, Huzele, and Lesko. In this situation, we can see that to provide a service to the villages outside of the main route, like Dziurdziów and Veremień, is not logical, because we will have to have an extra 5 to 10 kilometers to provide a service to those villages, which is costly, which is time consuming, and in those villages there are just a few hundred inhabitants, so probably it will not satisfy the demand for those services supply. I'm sorry. In similar situation we have in Okres Snina. So we can see that there is a river Chiroha going through Snina, Belana Chiroho, Luhena Chiroho, and if you would plan public transport from city from the west, from Okres Snina, from Humene, we can do it like this, from the west to Snina. In this situation, we can see that the village, pretty significant village actually, Zemplinskie Hamre, is out of public transport, because we will have to add some kilometers to make the route there. But we can see here another phenomena, because if you look on the southern part, so-called the uphill part of the Belana Chiroho settlement, you can see that there is a significant chunk of village which is not covered by public transport, because the main route, the rails as well, are going through the main route, so people will have to go by foot a few hundred meters, kilometer, to get to the bus stop, which is pretty uncomfortable and pretty challenging, especially in the winter or for people with mobility disadvantages. So in this we can see that there are some difficulties in making public transport in the areas like this, in the remote mountainous areas. Okay, so now let's have a look on the consequences of transport-related social exclusion. As we saw in those villages, people had limited access to transport because public transport system is not able to cover all of the settlements equally. And because of that, those people living there, they are disadvantaged. They are facing transport disadvantage because they have, or if they have no car, they may have poor public transport services provided to their villages, or the cost of the fares. For example, they would have to rent a taxi, which is pretty much expensive, will discourage them from commuting. They may have sometimes lack of information about the public transport system, because some buses are operating in a gray zone, some are not going regularly, and especially for people without the internet, without access to the information, who don't really know how to get it, they may feel disadvantaged. And this is causing social disadvantage. So transport disadvantage is influencing the social disadvantage of people inhabited transport excluded areas, because of low access to mobility, to transport. They may have a lower income, they may have no jobs or other or less variety of jobs. They may have lower skills because it will be harder to acquire them. They may have some lower level of health, because to get to some specialists, if they need, it will be much harder, much further. They may have lower housing opportunities in these areas, and this all is causing transport poverty, which, as Karen Lucas find out, is causing the inaccessibility to goods, services, to life changes, to opportunities, to social networks, because people who are unable to travel to meet other people, they may have weaker social network. As well, like to culture, to participation in politics, for example, or social life of their community. And this all is causing the social exclusion, which has its long-term consequences. I would like to tell you about some consequences on economy and society of transport-related social exclusion. We will start from the economy, because it is because of poor public transport services and necessity to travel from the place of living of the person who is having a job somewhere to the workplace, and this person has to commute every day. And if this commuting is impossible because this person has no car or not willing to have a car, then it has to buy a car or use the services of somebody else, which is causing higher cost. So this person will be not eager to start a job if the salary will not cover the additional cost of traveling. The same is causing that in the same situation is with the workforce with the high skills, higher skills, because if they are unable to get to the working place because of lack of public transport, they may just simply not choose the job which is further away, because the commuting will be too expensive or too time consuming or just simply problematic. It's causing as well smaller local markets, because people are not willing to travel to the market to buy their goods and services and sell their goods and services, because they will simply calculate that it's better for them to stay at home and not have this costly activity. In the long term, transport exclusion is causing the lower in attractiveness for investors, because if the investor will find out that investing in such region where there are high labor costs, the skilled workforce is unavailable, is causing lower level of attractiveness. And as well, the fact that there is lack of these possibilities, opportunities to start a business and run a business and have some economic activity, it may cause a structural unemployment, which may happen in regions such as Snina and Lesko, because both of the areas are far away from the main industrial hubs, and this is causing the people who are living and working for years in these areas, they may lose a job in industry, or the work on when agriculture may be unprofitable. Then they may not have an opportunity to find another employment. This all may cause the peripheralization of the region. So because of lack of activity, economic activity, migration, because people who have no jobs, no opportunities, they may be forced to work below their skills and education. They may simply migrate to the bigger cities or migrate abroad, which is happening on a really, really huge scale from both of the areas. They may just leave, and this area may just simply slowly being peripheralized. The impact on the society are, on the one hand, weaker social ties, because if people are staying at home, they are not meeting their families, their friends, they are not making new connection with people. The social networks is weaker and smaller. Lack of transport is causing as well lower education opportunities, both in case of adults who are unable to improve their skills, but as well, and maybe most especially in case of the youth, for example, and on the level of high school, the kids are unable to pick the school with the profile that is satisfying them and can enhance their skills, their talents, because it's simply too far to commute to this school each and every day. It causing lower access to opportunities, the chances, the things that are simply happening, and people may use it to their benefits, and they may just resign from them because they will be simply too far, too expensive, and there's no way back because the last bus is at 4 p.m., let's say. The limited access to work, as we said before, because of lack of transportation available, limited access to goods and services. So people think twice and calculate twice. Should I go to this shop far away to buy those goods, or maybe I can just stay with what I have, because the costs they are having to add every time when I go in to buy some goods or services. They have to add the additional cost of transport to it, as well the limited access to health. And there is a phenomenon, unfortunately, in a transport really excluded areas, that many people who are old uh, are, and they have no possibility to use the car to get to the health services. They're using ambulances just to get them to the to the hospital, which is especially costly for the healthcare system. And in the end, there is a created culture of dependency on the cars. So basically, if the person who is living in such area have no car, basically it is impossible to live a life on a satisfactory level. And as we know, the number of parking places, for example, or just motorization, it has its own limitations. Yeah. So now I would like to say a few words about the phenomena of motorization, because in the areas which are excluded, the only way to satisfy the needs of mobility is to buy a car, because the bus cannot provide those services in this level if it is an excluded area. So in the areas which are transport excluded, the level of motorization is the highest in comparison to the whole countries. And not only that, because the number of the cars per capita is the highest one, but as well the age of the cars is the highest one. This is because people who are forced to buy a car, they may not really make this decision because of adjustment of the offer to their needs, but basically they are using every capital that they have to buy a car, because if they will not have it, then it will just simply limit their opportunities and it will make harder for them to survive. I would like to compare public transport systems of Poland and Slovakia. It will be a brief comparison. Our Polish public transport system is based on competition. It's a free market system. So basically, each and every company may provide the services to the potential passengers to to use their services, and they are creating the routes, the schedules, and nobody really can interfere with that. Majority of the operators in Polish market and in the market of Gmina Lesko are private, with some exceptions of county financed transport. And there is as well no rail tracks in Gmina Lesko, no operating rail tracks in Gmina Lesko, as they were found uncompetitive around 20 years ago. Some connections, like connections to school, are subsidized with the local local governments. And there is an idea of connecting the city transport from the nearby city called Sanok, the bigger city from the west from Lesko, uh, to Lesko. What are the pros and cons of the system? The pros are definitely that the system is flexible and is responding directly to the changes in demand for public transport. The cons are the disintegration of the public transport system. So we have disintegrated passenger information. The schedules of the buses are not matching, so sometimes it's really hard to switch from the local bus to the bus which is going inter-regional. There is as well lack of integration of bus stops. So, for example, in Lesko, you have the 3 places where the buses are stopping nearby. So before the disintegration, there was one place, and now each and every a lot of companies decide to have the separate so-called bus station, and it is impossible to buy the same tickets. For example, the monthly tickets are not profitable. There is no value added to buying a monthly ticket in the system, because each and every company has their own monthly tickets, and so if they are going on the same route, the passengers may not use them on the same route. And in case of Slovakia, now I'll go to Slovakia. System in Slovakia is based on demand analysis. The demand analysis is made by the designer of the system, which is the region of Prešov, Prešovský samosprávny kraj, and the main operator is a company as well. With the shares of the local governments, Slovenská autobusová doprava Humenne, which are providing the services in a region, and they are basically a monopolists on this region, so they have like full control over the system. Last year there was a big survey in the region where the inhabitants of the region were asked about their preferences on the routes, on the schedules, how many times per day they need the public transport, and based on that, the Prešovský samosprávny kraj is going to prepare the schedules for the next years. In Okres Snina we have as well rails, and there are a few rail stops, so the rails are still operating up to the village called Stakchin, so not only Snina but as well Stakchin. Unfortunately, the rails are not going more to the east, to the Ukrainian border. And the city of Snina is as well supported by city transport, Mestská hromadná doprava Snina. As we cannot compare Lesko to Snina, because Snina is more than 3 times bigger than Snina, but still in Snina we have the public transport, which is city transport, which is operating within the borders of the city of Snina. So what are the pros and cons of this system? First of all, the system may be not so flexible as the public private transport system, because the responding for the demand may be not so cost efficient. The pros are for sure that the system is subsidized, strongly subsidized, so it may provide the transport to the villages, which will be not covered, where it will be only used by the private operators, especially the feeder lines, the lines which we saw on the previous maps, which are out of the main communication routes. The other pro is the integration of the system, because we can see that the buses are there are interchanges, they are like planned in the system. There is no competition, so there is no need for the companies to kick themselves out from the system. And the other pro is that even in some bus stops, you may see not only the schedules of the buses, but as well the schedules of the rail when you have to make an interchange. So in short, this are the differences, main differences in the public transport systems. We can see shortly how it is influencing the transport exclusion and in which parts the transport exclusion is the strongest in both of the systems. So thanks to the studies and thanks to the input of the scholars that we based on our research on, we found out that the level of connections per day which is satisfying each and every user is 15 connections per day. So if there is less than 15 connections per day, then the passenger, the inhabitant of the village may feel that there is some disadvantage because this passenger is living outside of the city. So basically it has to adjust its schedule to the public transport rhythm. We made a study based on the numbers of routes in a year going to certain villages, and we divide those routes for 7 categories, which are working days outside of the vacation holidays, working days during vacation holidays, also Saturdays, Sundays, during holidays and out of the holidays, and as well the statutory day offs, so the national holidays. And by that, we found out that there are some certain levels of transport exclusions, but they are different in different locations. So here on the map, we can see the borders of Gmina Lesko, and we can see that the average transport exclusion level is minus 43 for the whole population of Gmina Lesko. Just for reference, the lower the level of exclusion, so minus 100 is the lowest one, the bigger the exclusion is. If it is 0, then there is no transport related social exclusion. And in Gmina Lesko, the average level by population is minus 43. But if we will count it by locations, the level of exclusion is minus 66. And as Lesko is the biggest location with the best connection system in a whole gmina, together with Glinne, then the level of exclusion is the lowest there. But if we will count only the rural areas, so the areas without Lesko, we can see that the level of transport exclusion is up to minus 70% in average. So in villages, people who are living there, they are usually significantly excluded. And we can see why this is happening. First, let's study the transport routes in the regions. So we have the main transport route from Sanok and as well from the west to the east, to the border with Ukraine and Ustrzyki Dolne, the city on the east, which is the main route which Lesko is in the middle. We have as well the route from Cisna from the south through Choczew to Lesko. The other one is from Polańczyk to Choczew and to Lesko. And the third one is from Solina, which is the touristic hub, which is going through Uherce Mineralne up to Lesko. We have as well some significant local connection from Bezmiechowa Górna, Bezmiechowa Dolna, Monasterze, Dłukawica up to Lesko as well. So we can see that there are some villages which are out of the main communication routes, transportation routes, and we can point them now. These are Dziurdziów, Weremień, and Jankowce, and in those villages there is no transport, public transport except of the buses which are delivering kids to school, and they are sometimes open as well for the available for the people living there. But those villages are excluded, so we cannot imagine anybody to use their services regularly, because simply you cannot rely on public transport in those villages. So basically, there is no other way than use the car from those villages. We have the other group, which are the villages Bachlava and Średnia Wieś in the southeastern part of Gmina, which are on the pretty much often used communication route, especially during the summer, where there is plenty of tourists going up there. But as they are not significant touristic settlements, there is not enough connections to satisfy the route on everyday basis, and those villages are pretty much excluded as well. The other group are the villages Bezmiechowa Dolna, Bezmiechowa Górna, Monasterzec and Łukawica, which have the few courses during the day, during the school days, but there is no other courses on the other parts of the year. And let's look how it's changing this transport exclusion level among the year. So we can see that the highest level of the accessibility is in the school days. There are some locations like Lesko, Glina, and Postov where there is no exclusion during school days, and as well in Bachlawa, Średnia Wieś, Bezmiechowa Górna, Dolna Monasterzec, Łukawica, there is a lower level of transport exclusion, and basically it's possible to use some kind of transport services there. But situation changed dramatically when we are going outside of the school year. In touristic routes in Bachlawa, Średnia Wieś, up to Choczew, Łączki and Huzele, there are some connections, yeah, but in case of Łukawica, Monasterzec, Bezmiechowa, there are no routes. So people who are living there, they cannot use public transport to going to work, because simply they cannot rely for the whole year on the public transport if they would like to have a job and they would like to work there, not only during the school days. They are forced to use private transport. In case of weekends, the situation looks pretty bad in almost all the gmina, because outside of the main route from Sanok to Lesko and Ustrzyki Dolne, pretty much all the villages, all the locations are excluded, and the situation is looking even worse if you will count the day offs. Simply there is no connection at all in those days. There are some exceptions, but to just like make it statistically relevant, we calculate it in that way. We can see here that the average exclusion for the population outside of Lesko is during the working days minus 54%, and the number on the vacation time is growing up to minus 80%. So it's like 30% increase. Okay, let's go further. Let's go to Snina to see how differently it looks like there. Sorry for the big map, but Snina is a big county, you can say. So here we have first of all, we can see that there is a rail connections, yeah, from Dlouhé nad Čirohou, Bela nad Čirohou, Snina, Stakčin, where there is no transport exclusion because there is significant number of connections there. And we can see here the main transportation routes going as well. But first I would like to tell you about the level of transport exclusion by population is only minus 14%. And by locality, it's increasing significantly because it's increasing up to minus 57%. So this is because mainly Snina is a big town and there's a lot of small settlements which have the lower accessibility to the public transport. And if you take out Snina from those statistics, we can see that the average level of transport exclusion by population is around minus 30%, which is still a significant number. I would like to show you now the main transport routes. So the main one is going from Humene in the west. So there is a city which is a local, like regional center, through Snina, Stakchin, Kolonica, Ladomiro, Ubla, up to the the border with Ukraine, with Ubla and Velky Berezhny. And the other main route is from the north. I'm sorry, and there is another supplementary way through Klenova and Kalna Rostoka. So those routes are going around the hills there. And the other main route is from the north, from Medzilaborce through Hostovice, Pczoline, up to Snina. And there is a lower number of connections because this area is pretty much far from there in this mountainous area. And okay, the third one is an alternative way from Humane through Zubne and Pichne. The fourth one is a pretty remote way in a really mountainous area and forested area from Nova Sedlica, Zboj, Ulic, Kolobaso, Prislo, Białova up to Stakchin. And as we see, there is like Stakchin is as well like some kind of local hub. And there is another way, the local one from Strychowce, Smigowiec, Dubowa up to Ubla, but I'm not sure if you can see it because probably I'm covering it with myself. And okay, so now if we will look on the statistics, if you look on the level of exclusion, we can see that the village Yalova has an exclusion level of minus 95%, which is almost fully excluded. We can see as well that it's a really small village because only 64 inhabitants it has, and those people are probably forced to go through this forested part up to the main street to get to the public transport. But the other locations, which are a bit more populated, are Čukalovce and Parichuzovce, which are in the north of Okres Snina. So we can see that the level of exclusion is around 70 and 80%, but those villages are still like small. They are below 200 inhabitants. The other group are the villages Topola, Runina, Ruski Potok, which are in the most remotely located area. So it's really hard to get there, but as well the level of exclusion is significant. And as we can see, like Runina has 77 inhabitants, Ruski Potok 136 inhabitants, and Topola has only around 150 inhabitants. So we can see like double exclusion because on the one hand this route is like supplementary from Stakchin to Nova Sedlica, and on the other hand we have the secondary routes getting to those small villages. And the other group is the villages Stakchinska Roztoka, Ruska Volova, Brezovec and Mihailov, which are as well excluded, but we can see the repeatable pattern that they are small villages out of the main communication route. And the last one, Hrabova Rostoka, really small village, which is really significantly excluded as well. But as it is not so far from the main communication route, there is possible of having this extra pocket way to get there. Okay, so let's have a look on how it is divided during the year. So we can see that the first columns looked much more green than in comparison to Gmina Lesko. That is because and there is not significant difference in between school days and vacation. So people may use the public transport on the same level from Monday to Friday over a whole year. And the situation is maybe not really great there, because we have the exclusion in the levels on average on a -50%, -60, 70 in some cases. But it's still something that people may make a regular plans of their lives if they're not students. As well, it is limited. We can see as well the limitation of this model, because the doesn't matter how many buses you will put during the day, there will be still some gaps, and to at some point to just fill the gaps, to just make everybody to have a possibility to use the public transport where there is a low demand, when there is not so many people living, it is pretty much impossible to do it by using of the buses. The situation is changing there if when we are speaking about the weekends. Most of the villages which are out of the rails and maybe some main route, they are having level of exclusion around 80% and more. So in the weekends, it's pretty hard to use public transport in those regions. And let's go to the average levels of exclusion. So we can see that the level of exclusion outside of Snina by population during the work days, it's -24 in a school year and -25 out of the school year during vacation. And outside of those days, it is -42. We can as well see how different these numbers are, because in Okres Snina we have as well some bigger villages like Stakcin and Ubla. But simply there is much more connections to the locations out of the main routes, and as well to some bigger villages. So from this both of these maps, we can see that the factor indicating the level of transport exclusion are both the size of the location, because smaller the location, especially in Okres Snina, then the less connections. And on the other hand, if the location is out of the main communication route, then we have as well less connections. Although there is some situation in Gmina Lesko, like Jankowce, which are pretty significant village, because more than 500 people, but still with really poor public transport offer. Okay, so what may be a possible solution for transport exclusion in such difficult environment, in such difficult conditions that we have in both of those villages? We were looking a solution in something which is pretty much an intuitive solution, and it's called carpooling. And first, what we did, we just studied the existing carpooling. So there are some populous groups on Facebook, which are gathering the offers of the people who would like to share their cars and travel with somebody to the other locations where they are going. Usually they are sharing the costs with them. So we analyzed all the groups existing in those regions. As you can see, we analyzed both passengers' requests and drivers' offers, and you can see how it looks like in
in Gmina Lesko. So majority of the offers are the long distance offers. So for example, and there are really limited numbers of traveling, for example, from Chisna to Lesko, or from villages like in Gmina Lesko to Lesko. Yeah, just few happened. So basically, people decided to use it in long distance. In Snina, the situation looked even more long distance oriented, because more than 95 or bits were from Snina, or so-called the region Vehod, to Bratislava or Vienna. We can see here like how those groups looks like and how many users is using them. So as well in Snina there was not at all like local orientation of this carpooling and in Facebook groups, and as well like not even like middle like regional and trans-regional offers. So what we studied later is the informal carpooling. So we find out that people in both of the regions are using carpooling to get to work with or their coworkers or people who are working in the same location at the same time. So they are just gathering together, getting to one car and traveling to just reduce the costs and socialize as well. As for the travels to school, especially if there is a few high school kids or university students who are going to one school at the same time, so they may use the car instead of public transport, especially if the public transport offer is poor. As well for shopping, we're going for some events, some public events, and as well for like private events. So people, instead of using public transport, because usually there is not enough offer to satisfy of all their needs, and some of their needs are regular. They are using informal version of carpooling. So what we decided to study is to find out the alternative for carpooling within for the public transport, to find to try to find a way to put the carpooling within the public transport system network. And the system that seemed to be the most adequate for the villages like outside of the communication routes, the small villages where they were sending the buses, big buses or even smaller buses, a few times per day, is simply economically a bad idea. It's pretty expensive. So as an alternative, we can integrate the private cars with the drivers with the people who are traveling from those small villages to the local hubs, transportation hubs, every day. So, for example, they are going to work every day, they are going to school, they have some other duties, and they are having these routes every day, and they are usually traveling alone, so there are free spaces in their cars. And this activity may be tracked as a regular activity. So it is a possibility to integrate those people activities within the public transport system and add it to the public transport schedule. So in this case, this fare will be part of the public transport offer, and it will be integrated with it, allowing people from those villages to have as well some interchange. For example, like in case of Lesko, going from small village then to Lesko, and from Lesko they may go to Kraków, to Warszawa, to Rzeszów, to have some longer fare, not necessarily using their private car, especially if they don't have. So drivers will be paid by by providing this service by transport organizer, so the local transport organizer provider. And what will be the feature of the service? That is that the service will be door to door, because the car may stop basically everywhere on a route, so there is no need to go by walk to the bus stop in the rain, in the snow, where there is often no path walk in the small villages, and people with disabilities, elderly people, people with strollers, for example, families with strollers and huge bags on the sides, they may have problems with going so far. And how the system may be organized. So the organizer will start the consultations with the local actors, so local administrations, NGOs, companies, so all those actors who may be interested in having people in the city, yeah, or in a villages, and as well public transport companies to just have to create a public transport network and schedules which are responsive to the needs of the people, and also for the public transport demand. And the organizer will recruit the drivers and make with them the consultations on the routes and schedules, and this all will be able to make the routes and schedules for those routes, which will be presented to passengers who will be evaluating it by using it. And what are the pros of this system? First of all, and the most important of all, is the reduction of the transport-related social exclusion, because each and every time where the empty car is going, there is a lost opportunity of for the person who may not travel, to may not go to make it satisfy its needs, even though there is an opportunity for that. So using of this opportunity will be a huge asset. As well, in comparison to traveling by buses, there will be lower costs of oil, because simply the cars are small passenger cars are more cost efficient in usage, and as well there will be no need of additional cost of going back to the base of the bus company after making the route. As well, the lower costs of drivers, because people who will drive those cars will be not the professional drivers, and they will not live only from driving those cars, but they will have this supplementary income for the activity that they are doing anyway. So it may be better cost efficient for the costs of drivers. The system may be supplemented by, for example, taxi drivers or some professional drivers who will replace the people who, for some reasons like sickness or basically going for holidays, will not be able to deliver those services. But in the end, the cost of purchasing hiring those drivers will be lower than hiring the professional bus driver with the whole bus. So the costs of the service of the purchasing the car and maintaining it will be outsourced to the car owner, because there will be no need to establish a whole company with the mechanics, with the people who are working with maintenance of the cars, but those activities will be done anyway by the car owners. The other pro is the reduction of the last mile problem, because the system will be created by door-to-door rules. So simply everybody who stay on the way of the car which is going may stop the car and may use the service. And the service will be responsive to the needs of disabled people, responsive for the needs of seniors and people who have some difficulties, for example, because of having some some special needs, it's much easier to make the public to make the transport of especially people with special needs by car than by bus. Everybody who was trying to get with the stroller to the bus really well can understand the struggles. And the last pro that I found out in this main set is the optimization of the routes, because in this situation there will be no need for creating just an extra routes served by the drivers who are living in a different villages, just because there is no driver living in the small village where you can start and end and finish the route. So basically, there will be every day few hundred kilometers saved just because of the optimization of the routes. I would like to thank you for listening, and please, if you have any questions, please send it to me now on the chat. I will try to respond them, and I will wait for you. You can send them as well on Facebook on comments. I have both of those platforms open now, so please feel free to ask the questions. And meanwhile, I would like to thank all the people who supported us with making this research going, because it was like work that we made with Dr. Michał Baran from Faculty of Management and Social Communication of Jagiellonian University in Kraków, who is an author of this research. He made this structure, so I would like to thank him from this place. As well, I would like to thank the Visegrad Fund for financing this project and taking care about the awareness of the difficulties which people in the excluded regions are facing. I would like to thank as well our Faculty of Management and Social Communication of Jagiellonian University. I would like to send warm thanks to Urząd Miasta i Gminy Lesko, especially for Ms. Magdalena Mazurkiewicz and Mayor Adam Snarski, who were cooperating with us with providing this seminar and this research. As well, I would like to thank Mecki Urad Snina, especially Ms. Erika Jankajowa, Mirosława Szpitalikowa, Monika Polaczekowa, and Mr. Samuel Obsitnik for helping us to get into the Slovak public transport situation and the social situations of the people in Okres Snina. As well, I would like to thank Miss Mayor Daniela Galandova. And I would like to send a huge thanks and warm thanks to Prezes of Podkarpackie Stowarzyszenie Miłośników Komunikacji and all of its members for your support to the project. And I'm really happy that we could make this project. And please, if you have some questions, please write it down, send it to me. And I'm just looking if there are some questions. I cannot see any. So in this moment, I would like to thank you for your attention. I would like to thank you for being interested in this phenomenon of transport exclusion, and I hope we will be able to soon to solve majority of issues of public transport in the remote areas, in areas where people are every day facing and struggling with transport exclusion. And I hope we will just be able to manage to stop the negative trends of migration because of transport exclusion. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you here. So I wish you a pleasant evening.